Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to an exciting and engaging second day of the inaugural Global DPI Summit. We're honored to have you here with us, and I'm certain that the engagements that we've had today and yesterday have been bold in terms of driving forward the digital transformation at a global level. At this stage, I want to talk about activities that are taking place in Africa. So Africa stands at the cusp of a transformative era where innovation and technology have the potential to shape the future of the continent. But this potential needs more than just technology. What we need at this time is that it demands the right ecosystems, the right cross-sector collaboration, and a shared commitment for inclusive digital frameworks. So I stand here with a singular honor to introduce a distinguished leader who has been at the helm of Africa's most ambitious efforts to integrate and advance the continent through the power of trade and innovation. I'm going to introduce a leader who has been the driving force in unlocking Africa's potential and through a unified economic bloc and promoting deeper integration and digital tools to facilitate better cross-border trade across the continent. Under his leadership, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area has been transforming Africa's economic landscape and providing a framework for inclusive growth that aligns with the promise of DPI to build a prosperous continent. Ladies and gentlemen, his vision and dedication to Africa's development have been invaluable, and we are privileged to have him here today to address and speak with us. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, may we please put our hands together for His Excellency, the Secretary General of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, Secretary General Wamkele Mene. SG.
Thank you very much for the very, very warm welcome and introduction. I want to thank you for inviting us here today for this very important discussion. The organizers of the event and the AfCFTA Secretariat, we have a shared vision for how precisely the steps that we can take can transform people's lives through interventions that we can make in the digital economy. The AfCFTA, as you may be aware, has been ratified now by 48 countries on the African continent and is well poised to integrate a market of 3.4 trillion United States dollars with a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion with a combined population of 1.4 billion people. Over the last 40, 50 years, Africa has been fragmented. The continent of Africa trades more with the outside world than it does with itself. And at the heart of this imbalanced trading pattern is lack of digital technological advancement to enable us as a continent to rapidly overcome the poverty crisis that we face for many decades. This is set to change with the adoption of the Protocol on Digital Trade. In February this year, 48 countries adopted the Protocol on Digital Trade, which in our view is the first of its kind around the world. And so it's an honor to discuss with you today how we can harness digital technology to build a united and a prosperous Africa for every African across our continent. The potential of digital public infrastructure is immense, as it is vital to accelerating intra-Africa trade, fostering digital and financial inclusion, and unlocking new earning opportunities, particularly for small medium enterprises. This is the promise of the AfCFTA, where we deploy digital technology for advancement. We aim to eliminate in this AfCFTA market, eliminate intra-Africa barriers to trade, non-tariff barriers and tariff barriers, and to create a single digital market. Digital public infrastructure plays a very important role in this endeavor, enabling seamless cross-border trade, facilitating financial inclusion, and unlocking new opportunities for Africa's digital economy. This emphasis on economic cooperation should inspire all of us to strive for a more prosperous African continent with digital and financial inclusion at its heart. Indeed, digital public infrastructure promises to support the ambitions of the AfCFTA by enabling the deployment of digital ID, interoperable digital payment systems, trusted data exchanges, and through the further realization of the movement of goods, services, and peoples across the borders of the continent. Digital public infrastructure is, in our view, undoubtedly the backbone of building and growing Africa's digital trade, creating opportunities in the digital economy, which is why inclusion and digital trade are our top priorities as we implement the AfCFTA. According to data by the International Financial Corporation, Africa's digital economy, currently estimated at $115 billion annually, is set to increase to be worth over $180 billion by the year 2025. If we make the correct strategic and policy decisions now to invest in digital public infrastructure, accelerating digital public infrastructure implementation can help the continent to double or even triple the numbers that I've just cited. By improving, for example, broadband connectivity and digital payment systems, we can significantly increase the volume of digital transactions, boosting Africa's digital economy. Let me pay attention to 2 or 3 areas which are integral to the AfCFTA digital strategy, as well as the AfCFTA protocol on digital trade. First, the protocol elaborates in detail on digital payments and the steps that should be undertaken to ensure that payments is affordable, accessible, and instantaneous. Before the introduction of the AfCFTA and the provisions of it that relate to digital payments, the African continent was confronting a currency convertibility rate, that is the cost of converting local currency into a third currency for trade. We estimated this rate to be at $5 billion. Our small medium enterprises, our youth entrepreneurs were spending vast amounts of money, cumulatively $5 billion, in order to be able to trade across borders. In addressing this specific challenge, we have introduced a provision for seamless digital payments in the protocol on digital trade. We have even gone further to partner with AfrEximBank and like-minded, like Better Than Cash Alliance, to ensure that we make the specific interventions that are required for seamless payments that is cost-effective, that is affordable, and easily accessible. 42 currencies is how many, are the number of currencies the continent of Africa has. And these currencies, of course, many of them are pre-colonial currencies that are backed up by 42 transit systems for payments and 42 central banks for payments. You can therefore imagine the burden, the cost burden, the administrative burden that this imposes on small, medium enterprises who seek to engage in Africa's digital economy. With the introduction of the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, we are well set and well poised to eliminate and reduce this burden on our small, medium enterprises through this digital technological innovation. The second important step that we have taken in the protocol on digital trade is to introduce a prohibition on governments prohibiting data to move across borders. Previously, before the AfCFTA entered into force and before this protocol was adopted, as we all know, many governments across the African continent were prohibiting the movement of data across borders. The protocol on digital trade recognizes the importance of the movement of data across borders to the extent that this data does not impact on national security questions. And therefore, purely from a commercial standpoint, we see an opportunity through the introduction of this provision, which prohibits the government from enabling movement of data across borders, an opportunity for small, medium enterprises and the youth to commercialize data, to partner with data centers for the processing and management of data, and to be part of Africa's digital economy. A third important aspect of the protocol on digital trade is the provision that relates to digital identities, as well as broadband connectivity to ensure ease of access. We have also elaborated on the protocol on emerging technologies and how emerging technologies can significantly advance our development objectives. And so in the provisions that I cite, movement of data, digital payments, digital identities, broadband connectivity, emerging technologies, what you identify in all of these components of the protocol is our ambition to deploy technology for development. We believe that where we appropriately deploy technology, we have a very unique opportunity to accelerate Africa's digital economy and the opportunities that it presents, to ensure that we meet our objectives of inclusion, digital and financial inclusion. We see a very, very unique opportunity in the protocol on digital trade. All these issues that I've mentioned are indispensable for boosting intra-Africa trade and connectivity and driving growth across borders of the African continent. The protocol that I refer to on digital trade develops comprehensive and harmonized data governance frameworks to facilitate cross-border transfers, as I've mentioned, protect personal data, promote innovation, and ensure that data is used in a responsible manner. With the AfCFTA, we believe that we are well poised to meet the challenges of Africa's digital economy, to create opportunities, and to ensure that the appropriate regulatory environment is established for the inclusion objective and also to drive and power Africa's economies. Fundamentally, digital public infrastructure must empower youth, it must empower women, and it must empower small, medium enterprises. This is aligned with the protocol of the AfCFTA on women and youth in trade. A combined reading of these protocols, the protocol on women and youth in trade and the protocol on digital trade, once again I wish to emphasize that it positions the African continent in a unique manner to take advantage of the digital economy. The protocol on women and youth in trade is a significant step forward that codifies Africa's aspirations for equality, for inclusion, elimination of barriers that women-owned businesses confront as they seek to access markets across the African continent. It is a unique legislation in the sense that it codifies aspirations into legally binding obligations for the elimination of barriers that women and young people confront. The Protocol on Digital Trade and the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade are the first around the world. We're extremely proud that the African continent has taken this giant step forward by introducing these two legislations, which soon will be implemented at national levels. As we work with governments across the continent, we urge them to prioritize investment in digital public infrastructure, broadband in particular, data centers. By the year 2035, the African continent will require over 700 data centers, which is an opportunity for commercial activity by small, medium enterprises and millions of young Africans. We also urge governments to invest in cloud computing infrastructure, in responsible digital payment systems. As I've mentioned, the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System is one of them. But in this endeavor, we shall of course require partnerships and stakeholders to work this journey with us. And that is why this forum today is so important. Here today we have an opportunity to engage with like-minded stakeholders who will partner with us in the implementation of the Protocol on Digital Trade. Our ambition is very simple, and the ambition is to deploy technology for Africa's development, to deploy technology to accelerate Africa's digital economy and access to it, to make sure that we create opportunities for small and medium enterprises. Over the last few years, we have engaged with Better Than Cash Alliance in observing border posts across the African continent. And what we saw was in some cases discouraging, in others very encouraging. Discouraging in the sense that we continue to see our smallholder farmers, our informal traders, having to spend vast amount of money to convert currency, local currency, to third currencies. But at the same time, we see a spirit that is indomitable, a spirit of seeking to take advantage of this great market that the African Continental Free Trade Area offers. And so we have a very unique opportunity and a responsibility to make sure that Africa's digital economy and Africa's single digital market does indeed become a reality. I look forward to working with many of you in the room to make sure that we implement the Protocol on Digital Trade and to create the opportunities that I'm sure all of us want to see. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Another round of applause. So, to have a discussion with His Excellency, please allow me to welcome a leader who has over 20 years worth of experience in areas of financial inclusion and also ensuring that underprivileged communities have a political and economic voice. At the moment, she is the CEO of the Digital Impact Alliance. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Priya Vora.
Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining us here in Cairo. I know you have such a busy schedule, so we're also pleased to be here with you. I know this room is full of people who want to know about the progress, the challenges, and really how they can help on the digital trade agenda. So we're going to dive right in. I think we've got about 15 minutes of Q&A. And for those in the audience, if we have time, we'll invite you to submit your questions on Slido. So you talked about the implementation, just getting started. And I wonder if you can just tell us, what does the implementation process look like for the digital trade protocol, and when we can expect it to get rolled out fully?
Once again, thank you very much for the invitation to be here. The protocol on digital trade was adopted just this past February by the African Union. So we're still very much in early stages. However, as you may be aware, there are a number of countries in Africa that were already on course to meet some of the objectives of the protocol, even in the absence of the protocol itself. We know that, for example, Nigeria, Rwanda, Egypt, actually, South Africa, some of the leading countries in digital technology. But what we want to achieve through the protocol is to scale access to all of these various components of the protocol that I mentioned. And we want to scale that through particularly small, medium enterprises. So payments, for example, as I mentioned, is a significant challenge, but it's also a significant opportunity if we get it right. The cost, again, as I mentioned, is exorbitant, $5 billion annually. So that $5 billion that we spend as Africans to trade amongst one another is $5 billion worth of innovation, competitiveness, forgone. The second important aspect that I believe we will have to focus on as we implement the protocol is on movement of data. Yeah. We know that there are small, medium enterprises, there are youthful entrepreneurs who have the skills to commercialize data and to make a living out of the movement of data from one jurisdiction to the other. So we have said to governments, you are prohibited from prohibiting the movement of data across borders, which was a very difficult discussion. But once we assured that from a security standpoint, nobody is interested in military data, but we are interested in commercial data. So these are the components of the protocol that I believe we will have to work together to start implementing. Yeah. The final point I would make on this is how important it is to advance on Africa's development, leveraging on technology, and to do that in a way that gives people, for example, gives people access to markets, reducing the cost of payments, enabling the movement of goods and services through technology. This is the development dividend that we want to see out of this protocol.
So let's dig in on both of those points, on payments and the data sharing side. So starting with the payments, I think it was just last month that you reflected on the pace of the adoption of the Pan-African payment settlement system. And I'm going to quote you here when I say, I think we have to make the mental shift of not only believing in ourselves as Africans, but also believing in the institutions and the mechanisms that we have introduced. So I'm curious, what do you think is required to create that trust and confidence in the continental mechanisms that have been set up?
Let me answer that question by saying that it is, and we were talking about it before the session started, it is absurd to me as an African that when I want to transact with somebody in Kenya and I live in Ghana, that I do so through a correspondent bank in London. Right. If I'm flying from Ghana to Kenya, there's a direct flight. Right. I don't start in London.
You have the FX costs and the transaction costs.
Precisely. So similarly with payments, it should be that seamless and direct. And so what we have done with AfCFTA, recognizing that if we don't address this challenge of the cost of trade and the cost of currency convertibility, the continent of Africa will not be able to double intra-Africa trade by the year 2035. We have the opportunity to double intra-Africa trade by 2035, but we have to deploy all the available tools at our disposal, not just the elimination of tariffs, which is only one tool, but looking at all of these technologies. And so that's why the Pan-African payment and settlement system is so critical, because it enables us to trade at reduced rates on a digital platform instantaneously, and makes a contribution to Africa's trade. Where my sense of concern arises is that we have created the Pan-African payment and settlement system, but some among us will continue to use systems that do not contribute to boosting intra-Africa trade. Right. I have never heard of a trader in Europe trading between Germany and Holland using a correspondent bank on the African continent. I've never heard that because it's absurd. They have set up a payment system for Europe, and that's how it should be.
But is it a lack of trust, or it's a lack of willingness to kind of convert to a different new system for some other reasons, from cost or other things?
When I said trust, I meant, we should trust the systems that we build. And PAPS is a system that we've built. Yeah. I do recognize it is going to take time, because we're looking at over 70 years of fragmentation of the market in Africa, whether it is payments or the digital. We don't have a single digital market until the protocol on digital trade, which hopefully will achieve that objective. So we've got to trust in these systems that we've built. We've got to trust in these protocols that we have negotiated. We have to trust in the institutions that have the mandate to deliver on this objective. And so that is why we urge our commercial banks and central banks to use these platforms that we've created.
Now, I imagine the data sharing part is even trickier in some ways, as we've seen. Everyone thinks of data as a strategic asset, and sharing data is, as you mentioned, prohibitive before. So I wonder, what specific actions have you had to take to really convince the member states to think about both data sharing and shared data governance frameworks, while also protecting security and privacy?
Well, first, it was a very difficult discussion, as you can imagine, from all angles, from a commercial angle and also from a security angle. But what we assured is that if you have a bank or a hospital, that bank, the data center that processes the data of the bank is really not a threat to a government or a country. All that the data center wants to be able to do is to manage and process the data and send it abroad if it has to, abroad as in within the AfCFTA, the single digital market. And so the more we explained this and the more examples we made, it became very clear that there is no threat. We do, of course, recognize that there are sensitivities, national security, military-related, and I don't know of a commercial entity that is involved in data processing that would be interested in that. They tend to be very narrowly circumscribed, and they have to meet certain protocols through the ministries of defense and so on. But purely from a point of view of commerce, the more we discussed it and made specific examples, the clearer it became that this is not a threat. What we did make very clear is that there is transferability of the obligation of confidentiality. So if you move data from the hospital, for example, to the data center, and the data center processes it and moves it, let's say, to their other location, we expect, there's a reasonable expectation of adhering to the confidentiality of the data. And this, I'm very pleased to say, was readily accepted as an obligation to create an environment where the public will trust that the data is not misused.
We heard this morning an incredible talk and a vision of having personal data in the hands of people, kind of in the same way you can carry cash across borders. You could carry in your digital wallet your credentials, your transaction histories, your so much more, and what a powerful vision it would be for people to be able to seamlessly exchange their data within a country and across borders. So hopefully we can get there. So I want to give you a chance to talk to the room. We have great international partners who are keen to be helpful to this agenda. I think if successful, the AfCFTA, I think, is estimated to help lift 50 million people out of poverty in 10 years. So this is a community who cares about this, who wants to see it successful. And I wonder if you can tell them, what are the specific types of collaborations and partnerships and support either the AU needs or partner countries need to really make this vision of one single market a reality?
The vision of a single digital market will require a cross-sectoral collaboration on the continent of Africa and those outside of Africa. The implementation will happen at the continental level, which is where we are as the Secretariat, but also, and more importantly, it will happen at national level. So we have to work together to build the capacity of governments and the private sector at national level to implement the agreement. We have to work together to raise awareness and advocacy about the benefits of Africa's digital economy. We have to work together to train young people. We do know that already there are millions and millions of young Africans who are at the cutting edge of digital innovation, but we want more to be included in this very exciting era that we are in. And so I see potential for collaboration at national level, identifying those countries that are in a state of preparedness to start the implementation in earnest. And that's something that I believe we can look at across regions of the African continent. We also have an important task at continental level to build the capacity of the Secretariat itself. The colleagues, we have maybe 3 colleagues who deal with digital trade.
That's it.
For the entire continent. That's it. 3 people. So we would need to focus on building our own institutional capacity. And here I'm not talking knowledge, because the knowledge is there, but to build our own institutional capacity to be able to work with member states to achieve this objective. This, for us, is the #1 priority over the next 3 to 4 years. The protocol on digital trade was negotiated in a very, very robust manner by ministries of ICT, ministries of trade, and some ministries of security also were part of the negotiations. So the level of expectation is extremely high, and the level of ambition is equally high. So I would appeal to those who are in a position to work with us to to help us to match the level of ambition that we have with the level of expectation that is out there. Yeah. It's a monumental task.
Yeah. Okay, I hope everyone heard that. Capacity, youth skills, and of course support to the Secretariat. So just imagine we're at the 3rd Global DPI Summit, so 2 years from now, and we're sitting on stage. What do you hope will be true? What can we celebrate then?
Well, I hope we would have identified a critical mass of countries that we can undertake a review of them having implemented the protocol on digital trade, and to see what are the lessons learned. What have we learned from implementing this protocol? Has a seamless digital payments platform, has it succeeded in inclusion? Has it succeeded in ensuring that all of those informal traders, that they are part of Africa's digital economy? And these are very, very basic observations that we can make over a relatively short period of time. So this is where I hope in 3 to 4 years we shall be. I do believe that the biggest step that we took was to overcome all of these, not really legal barriers, but these mental barriers about movement of data, for example, which is an extremely sensitive, continues to be extremely sensitive. Everywhere around the world. Mm-hmm. And so we were able to overcome that. Similarly with protection of personal and confidential information, and sharing these frameworks for data protection. I think these are important achievements that we have gotten over these hurdles which were mental. One final thought I would share on this is how the protocol enables the capability to establish a truly continental public citizen register, a digital public citizens register, with all of the benefits that comes with. So if you have 1.3 billion people on a population register that is digital, you are able to overcome a number of constraints to growing Africa's economy. You would be able to enable the movement of persons at a relatively faster period. You would be able to ensure that you make the right interventions for planning purposes for a specific region or country, population. So from our point of view, and this is all enabled by the protocol in the provision that relates to emerging technologies. So the limit is the sky as to how far we can push this protocol, not just for Africa's technological advancement, which is important, but for inclusion, financial, digital inclusion, and advancing on Africa's development objectives.
Then I'm going to ask you to join me in thanking the Secretary General of the AfCFTA, and good luck. I hope we have a chance to see all those incredible milestones achieved. Thank you.
Your Excellency, we thank you for gracing us with your presence and taking time out of your schedule to join us at this inaugural Global DPI Summit.